May the words of my mouth and the meditation of each of our hearts be acceptable to you this day, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. I don't know if any of you have ever had these parent fail moments. Maybe it's just me. But on way too many occasions, I would say to one of my kids after they had done something provocative or mean, usually to their sibling, say you're sorry. Tell your sister or your brother, depending on the day, that you love her. Of course, time after time, this was met with a snarling response of, sorry. What are you sorry for? I would persist. I don't know, would be the defiant, eye-rolling response. You'd think that I would have learned after a time or two. You cannot order an apology, and you can't command love. I mean, I know in my head that love doesn't obey decrees, yet I persisted. Maybe it was Jesus' example in this text that inspired me to keep trying my strategy despite its constant failure rate. Because that's exactly what Jesus says here. This is my commandment, that you love one another. But the thing that makes all the difference are the 5 little words that he tacks on to the end of the sentence. As I have loved you. Love one another as I have loved you. Jesus isn't giving the disciples or us an easy way out. He doesn't enable us to do nice things for others through clenched teeth and with resentful hearts. When Jesus says that we are to love as he loved, he means it. Authentic feeling, honest engagement, generous action. Could you imagine how different the world would look if we took this commandment seriously? It would be hard to have such polarized divisions or to turn to gun violence when we honestly engage with one another and abide in Jesus. Yet how often do we determine that we'd rather keep our circle small and safe, filled with people who look and think like us? We can manage charity. It's easy to donate canned goods or to write a check or to ride the teeter-totter. But having to cultivate our hearts, to prune them to love, to be more vulnerable to the world's pain, these things are hard and emotionally costly. But then there's that deceptively challenging phrase, as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Think for a moment about how you imagine God in your head and in your heart. Not just how you think about God, but rather how you imagine God to be. You know, I'm often stunned when people ask me if I think that God will forgive them or love them, given some action that they have taken or thoughts that they have had. I really worry that far more people than I would ever guess view God as a judge who needs to be appeased or as a stern parent with strict rules that need to be obeyed. But remember that it was on the eve of his crucifixion that Jesus said that he loves us as the Father has loved him. His words remind us that God will go to any length to save us through love, that God won't let anything come between us and that love, because love conquers, love prevails, love wins. If you aren't sure that you can buy that, then take a look around you at this family of faith, especially over these last few months as I prepare to depart from this beloved community in just 2 short weeks. I have been particularly cognizant of the love that flows from one to another in this congregation. For those of you who were able to participate in Dining for Dollars at Baker Square last Tuesday, you couldn't help but feel the camaraderie that pervaded the restaurant on that night when members hopped from table to table, greeting one another warmly and sharing stories. It is the love embodied in this congregation that draws guests to this church, that welcomes old friends who might pop in for a visit, like Pat Agnello or Russ and Zach Leanza did yesterday at the Teeter-Totter Marathon, or like Joanne Lehman did when Carrie brought her to worship a few weeks ago, or like Carrie herself, who returned recently after decades of being away and was warmly embraced by so many friends who welcomed her back as though she'd never been gone. I recall the overwhelming outpouring that Mike and I experienced 6 years ago when Megan got sick, the meals that arrived at our doors, the giant card that you all made and then signed, the stack of cards more than a foot tall, many of them from friends here, those cards that sustained us, the texts that came when I really needed a word of hope, and the amazing way you surrounded not only us, but our extended family and friends who came to Megan's memorial and who were so stunned by the warmth of a church that showered them and us with welcome and love. Friends, when I imagine God, I don't see a vengeful, judgmental being who's meting out justice and causing painful outcomes. I imagine God right here, embodied in all of you, in the excited voices of our little ones who can't wait to say hello and share what's on their hearts, the words that pop in and just have to come out. We hear it in the urgent voices of those who call to find out how a friend has done following surgery. We hear it in the ways that you respond when presented with a need, whether it's to show up at the Teeter-Totter Marathon or to make sure that we have enough people to help a young family move or to help an older member make some repairs at their home. Although it took repeated failures for me to catch on, I did eventually realize that I couldn't command love, but Jesus can. He can because, as Scott Hosey, the director for the Center of Excellence in Preaching at Calvin Seminary, points out, Jesus is the true vine, and we are the branches living on that vine, filled with the sap of Jesus' love that flows through all of us. We just need to abide in that love. This means we need to cling to and make ourselves at home in the love that Jesus offers us. The problem is, however, that we often want to treat Jesus as a role model, and then we despair because we can't live up to his standards. But abiding is different than emulating. Jesus' love is not our example, but rather our source. Jesus' command isn't that we wear ourselves out trying to conjure love from our own easily depleted sources, but rather that we abide in this holy place where our love originates, deepens, and replenishes itself. That is the commandment that we can follow. Thank you for the privilege of having been a part of the love of this congregation for the past dozen years. It has been an incredible and rare gift that I will cherish for the rest of my life. You have made my joy complete. Thank you. Amen.